Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Megaman ZX Advent. In the last part, we finished off our duties over at Legion Headquarters, where, bad things happened, frankly, and then we got ourselves started on some various side quests over at Hunter's Camp, if memory serves. And before we get into the main next set of 4 levels, we're gonna do some more of that, because there's some more we can start, and even some we can finish back here at Legion Headquarters. Are you a hunter? You're here just in time. Oh no, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, now I remember. I heard that there's a fire breaking out in the Legion building. If that's true, I'm worried. I can't go and check it out with all those mechanoids around. Could you go and take a look and put out the fire if there is one? And for that mission, we actively can't do that until we beat the boss I'm taking care of in this video. But if you want to do that, that's over, I believe, in Legion 3?
Were you able to give the backpack back to him? That's great. Well, he wants me to have this disc for just from finding that backpack. I only have the equipment to analyze it. Here, you keep it?
And that entire side quest, getting that comic book guy's backpack back, was all for a secret disc that admittedly has a little bit of a funny Easter egg for one of the few classic Mega Man games I still haven't played on the channel. Soon-ish, TM. But we'll see that later on. The big thing at this point, I think that's the only thing we can really... Actually, no, there is no big thing. I think starting that side quest with What's-Her-Face and giving that disc to him and back is the only thing we can really do here now. So let's head back to Hunter's Camp and start off, I think, maybe one more side quest before heading over to our first of the next 4 stages. Now, you can take these on in any order, but I feel the order I'm going in is the best when it comes to getting side quests done along the way. On most playthroughs, I would start with the floating ruins, but nowadays I tend to start with the control center. And this place is going to look a little familiar to people who played the first ZX. This heat's unbearable. What the heck is going on? That building is the control center for several energy furnaces in the surrounding city, but the Mavericks have caused an uncontrollable thermal runaway. If we don't do something, the energy furnaces will explode! These guys don't mess around, do they? We don't know how long those furnaces have until they blow. Do something to take charge of that control center. So let's see, we got chandeliers, a very deep, like dark red, dark pink aesthetic going on here. Some tables we can crawl under. The control center is a repurposed post-End of ZX destroyed Serpent HQ, the final level of the first ZX. And as we get further in, the aesthetics also change alongside how that level did. For instance, we're going to see some emptied Cyber Elf containers. We're going to see the aesthetic change as it did in the original ZX. It's a really cool revisit. We even see the spinal cord elevator shafts. With that said, you want to climb the first rope you see in the stage with Rose Spark, and then climb up the elevator shaft without actively entering the elevator, because it's going to allow us to get an optional power-up here. And it's one that I recommend you get if you're playing the game, because it's just going to make your survivability all the better. That really shouldn't have hit me, but I guess Rose Spark's hitbox is as big as his sprite is. Also, I haven't really talked about it yet, but man, Rose Spark's really just presenting there, huh? Not even the only Inti Creates game to do that. Astro Striker Gunvolt 1 has a character that does that as well. And for climbing up the elevator shaft, we get ourselves a life up, the second of the 4 in the game. Now, this level has some somewhat annoying horizontal segments, yes, but I feel it is ultimately the easiest stage out of these 4 that we have here to play. Outside of maybe the highway or this, I think, are the better stages to start with out of this group of 4. Don't start with the scrapyard. In fact, in most cases, I'd say you should do the scrapyard last. And the floating ruins can be dangerous, but it has some extra deadliness going around, plus I want to get a side quest done there, more or less first visit, so we're doing that after this stage. The main thing is what you're going to want out of the A-Transes. I find the floating ruins and the A-Trains from this stage are the best ones to get out of this set, so we're starting with this one. And now we have a mini-boss. A giant bunch of turrets that's oddly similar to, I think, a boss from, it was either 04 or Mega Man 4. Best thing to do here, switch over to Atlas, destroy the one on the bottom, and then just mash the fire button while aiming upwards to take care of them all in sequence, where they can't really touch you anymore. That is something I it takes some getting used to, admittedly, when it comes to playing ZX and ZX Advent over original. Admittedly, I've gotten used to using this control scheme in the Zero games at this point as well. Is pressing R to fire your sub-weapon just straight up? Growing up, and I even did this in my LPs of the games back when, I would be the type to use the switch method of weapon usage in the Zero and ZX games, where you press the R button and it would swap whether or not you were using the main weapon or sub-weapon. Because there's 3 control things. There's just pressing R to use a sub-weapon. There's using R to switch. And then there's the really weird one, which is pressing R and the attack button to use the sub-weapon. As I've gotten older, just having both weapons available at once has felt better when it comes to just using my charge shots up. It allows you to do some potential better combos. And in some cases, just completely break the game, in the case of certain characters in the series. This door here, if I recall correctly, is just a secret disc, but there will be a character in here for a side quest later on in the game. Although that side quest you have to accept at Hunter Base, so you don't have to worry about backtracking to the level. There are a surprisingly few amount of side quests you access in the levels themselves, which isn't too weird in some regards, because the original ZX didn't have too many of those. But they have a lot of rooms that are there just for side quests in the stages in this game, and it really kind of stands out for that. Doesn't feel the best, but at the same time, at least they'll stick in your mind for, oh, there was an empty room here, maybe I should come back later on. Now, the vertical sections of this stage, as you've seen thus far, I feel are also very tailored around Buckfire, because his wall jump really just exceeds in traversal here, outside of the very top of this particular vertical shaft. It's real good. I like that they allow the characters to get some good use even later on. Because in a lot of games where you get powers in a very linear fashion like this, like Zelda, sometimes the early game ones just fall by the wayside later on. I think every single transformation in this game has a use, even by endgame. In fact, if anything, some of the endgame ones aren't as useful because you don't have as many opportunities to use them, which is weird. Like, I'm thinking of one of the last set of the pseudoroids in the game, one of the last 3. They're only really used for getting a lot of secret discs, now that I think about it. Whereas even some of the other ones, I don't exactly use them for that purpose, but they're used to get, like, other sub-tanks, do other side quests, things of that nature. Now, before we head after the pseudoroid of this stage, you might want to switch over to Atlas and swap the patterns for your busters, so you can more easily damage them. More on why in a moment, because it's time for the usual pre-boss cutscene.
It's been a while, but I see you're surviving the game of destiny. Well, have you found anything out about yourself?
Shut up! What do you know?
Don't bark at me, scum! I've only come to retrieve this Model W. No rush. I'll cut you to ribbons soon enough. Look forward to it.
Ugh, he makes me sick.
My, did little Prometheus leave already? He's so impatient. In a moment, the energy furnaces will explode, and a beautiful fire flower will bloom, filled with sweet nectar, the nectar of terror.
So you're behind the thermal runaway.
That's right, boy. Oh, I mean Megaman Model A. I'm Queenbee. I'll give you a taste of my special nectar. Despair, with a touch of bitterness.
So Queenbee's a little interesting that she tends to stick towards the top half of the screen. This is why we swapped over to Atlas and changed her firing directions so we can more easily damage her. However, her main attacks are just moving across the screen and using her Hive. There are 2 variant attacks that her Hive can do. They can either fire bees out at you, which will then try to just swarm you. She can fire various lasers out, or she can fire some homing shots. She can also go to the top of the screen with the Hive and fire down giant lasers at the floor, which will send some fire projectiles out at you. They have to dash under, position yourself pretty precisely to get around. Chrono Force can be useful in this fight especially, just to get around that attack, because it's kind of hard to dodge that one. However, you can shoot her Hive to do damage not only to her, but to give her an entirely different attack set, which is mostly just her moving around and shooting her stinger. This mostly allows you to access her weak point, which every Pseudoroid has in this game, like they did in the last one, a weak point where they take slightly more damage. Sometimes it's good to hit them, sometimes it's not. With that said, notice them defeating her without letting her set out her bees. That gets us a silver medal. More on what those are later on in the game.
What? You refuse my precious gift of despair? Oh!
And now we've copied Queenbee's data. This is why I went after this stage first, outside of the life up, because Queenbee is arguably one of the best A-Trans abilities in the game for her mobility. She has infinite jumps as long as you have biometal energy. Every jump is one energy used. She can fire her stinger down, which doesn't do too much, and can charge it for a fire elemental tech that has some vertical reach, but this is her other ability right here. I presume that's the main computer which controls the energy furnaces. This can't be. The cooling function can't keep pace with the thermal runaway. Rip out the core module and shut down the main computer by force. How are we going to take out the core module? It's huge! Hey, changing the Queenbee. She was carrying some kind of big container before, right? Shouldn't we be able to raise the core module up the way she did? When you morph into Queenbee, you can fly by pressing the jump button. But when you fly, your BM gauge goes down. To lift the core module, first get on the top of it, and then press down on the D-pad to dock. When the core module is docked, press the jump button to fly away with the module. Who knows, there may be other things you can dock with. You find something in the area that you think you can dock with, give it a try. So that's Queenbee's other ability. If there's anything that has like that gold rim on the top of it, you can now press down to jump into it, and jump with it to rip it out. It seems to have switched over to its subsystem somehow, and the thermal runaway is stopped. The auto recovery system should kick in momentarily. Thank you for your help. There's a couple of other objects we can do that in throughout the game. In fact, one of the very side quests I got at the start of this video needs that in order to be done. But ultimately, it doesn't get used too much. In fact, there's one side quest that you can only use it for as Ash because you use it in that very side quest I talked about earlier in the LP. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in Part 9, we're heading over to the Floating Ruins. See you guys then. I love the song here so much. More on that next time.